Hey guys, welcome back to another video, and today we're going to talk about My Adventures with Superman from Adult Swim. When this show was first announced early this year, I was generally excited for it. The style and animation is very anime and it's quite different from the other Western animated shows, and it's like comparable to like Avatar, like Boondocks, and shows like that. Now, to be honest, I'm not too familiar with Superman, but the content I have, like All Star Superman and like the movie and the comic and some other Superman media, I really appreciate the character. And through this show, this really made me, what you call it, like more solidified, as Superman as a character. And this is one of my favorite interpretations of Superman like ever, and I really love the exploration. The first thing I want to talk about is the animation and art style, and the animation is really good, and the style is really nice. It's really pleasing to look at. It's not like too harsh, harsh edges, and it's just like a pretty simple but anime style, animated series. And this really reminds me of Avatar, Teen Titans, Boondocks, because this is made by a studio called Studio Mir, which is a South Korean studio. And I checked their portfolio and it's like really legit, and their animations, like from like other outsourced to other companies, it's really good. And throughout this whole show, the action has been really good, and the emotion and like detail of it is really nice. And the other thing I also want to talk about is the voice acting. Jack Quaid plays a fantastic young Superman. He's like quirky, but a bit timid, a bit shy. But when he needs to like step up, he actually portrays that really well. What I love about Jack's performance is that he feels very genuine. It makes Superman as like this very like relatable, everyday outgoing guy, and I think he's like a really good choice as Superman, as he plays a similar role, kind of like to Huey in The Boys, and he's like this really like timid guy, and and I think it portrays really well as Superman. And when he needs to be serious, he can do that, and he does an exceptionally good job as Superman and Clark. We also have Alice Lee and Ishmael Saeed both playing Lois and Jimmy, and they're both really good. They both have like explosive energy, but there are also times that you're like, they clock it down and to like just have genuine moments and talking. And the voice acting is like really good and sound really actually professional. And I'm really glad they, that our secondary characters are really great, and just the whole dynamic between like all three of them is just great in general. And they talk like actual like people and like friends, and overall the voice acting is fantastic. What I like about this version of Clark Kent is that he's an inexperienced Superman, and I really like we get to explore his origin and like his like slow progression of getting his like powers, like super hearing like later on, and like heat vision and everything like that. We still have like the main powers, but he's still like learning and gaining his new abilities, which is really nice for the new viewers to watch, like what he can do with his powers. But not only that, he gets to like actually have to outsmart the villains, and like not just like punching them and stuff like that. He has to work around like to be a hero, because like that would be boring if he was just like KO everything in one punch, no pun intended. But it's nice to see that a Superman to use like smart, because like a lot of people don't highlight that about Superman as like his intelligence. He's a pretty smart guy, and he's like quick on his feet. But anywho, I like this Clark just being like very vulnerable. He's a really cool dude, and like he likes to talk with his friends, try to resolve problems. He's not in like the most direct character to have confrontations. That's more like Lois' side, but he still goes out of his way to solve any issue or just talk it out with his friends, and then try to fix things and try to make things better for everybody. Not only we got like the villain of the week and stuff like that, I also like how the show tackles about Clark's interpersonal issues and the relationship with his friends. And cause like as fun it can be, this is actually why I like the show so much, is because of the drama and like the interactions with the characters. I think it's really interesting that they kept his Kryptonian origins a secret and have been left alone for a good while, and Clark is like on a journey to find that out. And especially towards the end, when he like interact with his like actual dad, in memory. And I like we got like a little sneak peek for General Zod and Brainiac coming on like probably in season 2. But anyways, Clark is a great main character and not so different from the other animated Superman and Clark Kent and different types of media. I think this is like really a refreshing take, and especially in a modern day like take of Clark. And I'm so glad that this is a main character I genuinely like, and it's not a Superman that's not like a tyrant or like a dictator, but just a guy who's just gained his powers and finding his way on his own, and it's just like really relatable, especially people like me in their young adult years. And yeah, that's all I have to say about Clark for now. The other thing I heavily enjoyed about the show is the interpersonal relationships of like the main characters. Clark and Jimmy and Lois all have great interactions with each other, and I'm glad these characters have time to like talk and interact and like work together. And I remember watching a list from like Phil Mento from a video, like having characters have like relationships with each other. Like we have enough screen time with like Lois and Clark, and Lois with Jimmy, and Jimmy with Clark, and it's a great dynamic. And it's really great to have like these three characters have like their own motivations and values and such like that. And one of my favorite things like is like Jimmy, for example, is like a great friend, but also he's like a conspiracy theorist, and it's a really great twist to his character. And I also like half of the things that he predicts or conspires is like kind of comes true in a way, and that's a really fun like ironic twist to it. And I really like how Jimmy already knows like Clark is basically Superman, and like the lies he makes up, like breaking the doorknob of the sink, is just like really ridiculous to him. So I really like that like twist of like, I already know, but it's okay, like I know that you already have powers, but we're still cool. Lois is also a great character and one of the most essential ones, basically. And what makes Lois so great is like her whole character, like herself. She's very outgoing, bubbly, and sometimes a bit awkward, and she tends to mess up at times, but that doesn't really stop her, and I really admire about her. And then, and it's really great to have her interact with Clark, whenever she has problems, and out of frustration. And she's kind of like the opposite of Clark, and which makes her like a really interesting couple for them to get together. As Clark is a bit more reserved, a bit more awkward and shy, a bit more of a klutz, the traditional thing. But and Lois just being that more headstrong person in the relationship. But I think that's a really great dynamic, and I really love in this show is how they take the time to let them breathe and talk and have interactions, have them plan dates, spend time together, have arguments. And I think that's a really good builder to have, like, to make this couple believable. And that's a really great job for the writers, and I really admire that. One of the main things that people will say about the show is the relationship between Clark and Lois, and I would say it's believable, and I like it, and I ship them together. The show does a really good job, setting up Clark and Lois's relationship. And, obviously it starts off with them like coming as friends and then co-workers. And I love how it like basically sets up, what they're gonna be. And, there's like sprinkles of it, like them flirting and like working together. And there's just a clear sign of, attraction, in which a lot of shows and movies, they just randomly ship like the two characters, the male and female characters together just because. But no, this show really does a really good job, like taking its time, like for them to talk, speak with each other, spend time together, go on dates. It's really refreshing to see these aspects, these characters growing and, learning to like each other and like planning to do things and, such and so forth. Of course, there's this moment in the show where, when Lois finds out that he's Superman, she overreacted and like jumped over a building just to prove that Clark is Superman. In which, like, yeah, it's a bit excessive, but I didn't mind it because the show eventually made Lois and Clark talk about their like, issues, like why Clark is hiding the secret and why Lois was so obsessed with finding about Superman, in which Clark is right. Like, he has every right to hide his, secret and everything like that. And, of course, Lois, my bad, Lois would apologize for that. And I really like, they make up, even though this thing was just like just for the drama and everything like that, and it happens like very soon. I don't mind it. It's just like whatever. Of course they're gonna throw that in, but I'm glad they got it over with early on in the season, and then we can continue move on from that. In which I know some people may not agree with me, but I think it was like okay, and like the way they like make up, express like how they feel, and just like make amends. I'm glad that like that happened, and there's no stigma like against Lois, or at least for me at least. I also want to highlight the moment when Lois finds the kryptonite ball thing and like seeing like the evil version of Superman. I'm glad that she didn't like assume that like Clark's gonna be evil, but instead by 0 Hour Part 2, I'm glad they actually talked it out and saying, hey Clark, I trust you, I love you, I believe you won't be evil, and I'm really glad that she admitted that and like talked it out and like told Clark like what she saw and everything like that. And it's really good, and that's great, and I'm glad that they didn't go in the route like, oh, I don't trust you and all that stuff. I feel like that'd be a bit repetitive and like just like ridiculous for Lois to feel that way. And I'm glad that she has like faith towards Clark and like helping him move on, and like, or at least not exactly move on, but like push further to himself to be better and have a bit more self-esteem, like who he is and what kind of he's a great person, he won't be evil. And I really love these moments of like reassurance, like from Lois and Jimmy being supportive friends to Clark. And that's just what makes the show so great. It's just like these relationships and the build up and the time to have these characters spend time together. It makes them feel like actual friends and like create really good dynamics. And yeah, that's all I have to say about the dynamics. And for me, and this is like probably my favorite part of the show, besides like the animation and the action. And I'm just glad that this is a really good show. And yeah, the only thing I would say is kind of weak about the show is the villains. Like, the villains were a bit repetitive. They weren't exactly interesting or like pretty unique. The only thing, the thing that like I found a bit, I was like, like kind of weak, was like making the villains have powers based on like the technology they have. And I feel like that was like, that's like kind of underwhelming and a bit cheap to make them have like tech powers, have like technology have them like fight Superman and stuff like that. And the only like villains I would say that like memorable was like Lois's dad, and well, I forgot his name, dude, the purple dude. I don't remember his name, but I'll probably put it on the video screen like right now or something. But yeah, I would say the only aspect I would say like that's kind of weak is the villains. But I'm sure like probably by season 2 the villains could be a bit better. Probably like when Zod and Brainiac comes in. I'm really interested how they're gonna do that, in season 2, and what other villains they're gonna introduce as well. So I'm looking forward to that. Overall, this show is really great and a solid, animated Superman show. I really like the relaxed and like chill tone this show gives off, and I like how things are slowly building up as like the whole season progress. And I really like the relationships with Clark, Lois, and Jimmy, like being great friends, and the romance of it. And overall, yeah, this is a really great show. I highly recommend it. I give the show like at least like a 8 or 7 out of 10. Honestly, this is like more like a refreshing take on Superman. I'm really glad to watch something that's actually good in this past year or so about superheroes. Fucking Marvel, god damn it. But yeah, let me know what you guys think of Superman, the new series, and yeah, are you looking forward to season 2 and like what you think of it? And yeah, thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys on the flip side.